that I had come out. It was last fall through Holy and Intoxicated Publications out of Hastings, UK, which is crazy to think. It's a long poem in that it's longer than some poems. I don't know. Okay. It's been a crazy year. Not really been motivated, so I apologize. Hopefully I won't bring everybody else down. No.
Get happy, motherfucker. Shit.
I want to hear this poem. I like this poem.
Did you hear everything that I read? Seriously.
The Electric Preacher. For the earnest expectation of the creature waited for the manifestation of the sons of God. Romans chapter 8, verse 19, King James Version. I searched for God in religion, but found only rules. I searched for him in nature, finding only solitude and beauty. I searched for him in science, but instead found ingenuity and wonder. I looked to the heavens and found mystery and perspective. I looked for him in the mystic arts, finding only illusion and deception. I searched for him in humanity, looking into the eyes and faces of countless people. And while I found goodness in many, there was a real hunger for something more, for an alleviation of suffering felt. Lost, I stared at my reflection in the mirror and saw a man full of faults, a face riddled with self-doubt. The eyes staring back were experienced but weary, hands strong but scarred. Brimming with frustration, I opened my mouth to raise my voice, but only bile flooded out without a sound, running down my face into the floor. Frightened, I turned to run but was frozen in place, mouth contorted, continuing to retch, my tongue bifurcating, then splitting again, forming multiple tongues, all wagging independent of one another, lengthening to twice their original size until eventually what came out morphed into lyric and song. I convulsed once, then again, and without hesitation or effort started speaking in various dialects, ancient tongues, forgotten syllables, consonants, and phrases. My eyes, dilated and bulging, began to see what can only be described as a tear in some sort of veil. As I spoke, the tear grew longer, more defined, and began to pucker away from itself, revealing a rift, or rather a shift in the natural order of things, changing the properties and shapes of my surroundings, the color of things, colors not on any palette or known spectrum. A mosaic of patterns and designs flooded my vision. Spectacular apparitions materialized from the ether. Creatures emerged from the ground as if birthed from the loins of the earth itself. As the language flowed from my tongues, chanting at a fevered pitch, with the light of 1,000 stars around me radiating as heat from a supernova, the flesh on my arms and face began to bubble and melt, the pungent smell of burnt hair and flesh filling my nostrils. The flames engulfing my body, every cell in my being coming alive, speaking, singing in unison like a choir of the hosts of angels in the heavens, when suddenly a piercing noise quieted me. Losing control of all motor functions and falling to the earth, every inch of me sat in hushed reverence in an involuntary act of humility. I see the silhouette of a being, or what could be described as a semblance of organisms hovering in the stratosphere, making their way over and down to where I lay prostrate. They lay a hand on me, immediately radiating cold, then searing heat through my body, causing convulsions to jerk me out of my paralysis. After a few moments, I raise myself up on one knee, not yet sure if I can rise on my own. Finding my composure, I stand to look them in the eyes when, smiling, they reach into my chest and pull out a black mass, dripping ink blots to the ground, leaving a gaping hole in its absence. The creatures surround us, and they feed the hemorrhaging mass to them, all taking healthy morsels from it, until what's left is an inky stain in their hand. One of the creatures starts bellowing and rolling on the ground, writhing in pain for what seems like hours, until suddenly it ceases, lying motionless on the ground. Eventually finding its bearings, it squats and shits out a glowing object, then walks away indifferently. They walk over, scoop up the glowing artifact and place it in the gaping hole in my chest, then beckon the creatures back over, all then taking turns licking the hole, the wound closing itself into a tender, puckered scar. A partially sealed orifice, leaking shards of light from inside as the tear dissolves around me. Left once again staring into the mirror, I regard my own reflection, which has changed, somehow morphed into what appears to be a collection of organisms shaped into the shape of me. Each one regarding me back through the looking glass, smiling, revealing a legion of tiny mouths filled with razor-sharp teeth. Now to do God's work.